Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to do a little bit of a ranking video because every year I write down a list of 5 authors I want to try in that year, and then I make it a point to pick up their books and give them a read. And this year, again, I chose 5 authors. I have by now read one book by each of these authors. And so I wanted to do a little bit of a ranking of these to let you know how I got along with them, and also which of these authors I want to continue reading and which ones I think I will stay away from in the future. Now, these are usually authors that have interested me for many years, but for some reason I just can't seem to actually pick their books up. So that's the whole idea of this, because obviously I read many more new to me authors in a year, but these are the ones that I just needed that little extra push. Today I'm going to tell you whether it might be worth it or not. We're going to start out with a book on the 5th place in my little ranking, and that unfortunately would be The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is an author I wanted to check out for the longest time. I must be honest that sci-fi is not a genre I read a lot of, but Ursula K. Le Guin has written a lot of sci-fi and is celebrated for it. And so I wanted to just see whether it works for me, but unfortunately The Left Hand of Darkness really did not work for me, and it's definitely my least favorite of these 5 books. The plot was just so weird to me. Like, for the themes, it was quite interesting. If you don't know, this book explores like gender ideas, because we have kind of like an alien who goes to a planet where people do not have gender, I believe. I can't even remember it. I just remember how confused I was by the plot and how the plot just kept exploring things that I was not interested in. But because we have the setup of this like alien person who comes from the outside to observe all of this, it's still like we still have so much of our gendered view in this thought experiment, and I just really did not love that. And at the same time, the plot was just so weird, and half of this book is 2 characters trying to cross a glacier or something like that. So if you want to read something with lots of snow, I guess this would be a great pick. But I really couldn't. And I do have reading vlogs for all 5 of these, which I will link below the video, so you can hear all of my thoughts when I read the books, because my memory is pretty shit. So yeah, but this one really did not work for me, and I'm not really sure if I ever want to try another book by Ursula K. Le Guin. If you have one you think I should really give a try because it is very different, then you can leave it in the comments. On number 4 we have The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. This is I think the first novel she wrote, and I did enjoy this one, but it just never really went where I wanted it to go. In this book, we follow a girl who can go through magical doors to different worlds, which sounds amazing. I do love that idea. However, she doesn't really actually go through doors a lot in this novel, and we do also get these, I think it's like a diary of like different people, so most of like plot things happen to those other people and our main character is just reading about it. And at some point I was like, why do I not just have a story about these other people? It would be so much more interesting because they're actually using the doors. And so yeah, that was a little bit sad. What I really enjoyed about the book was the writing and kind of the smart bits about it. For example, I really enjoyed the way that Alex E. Harrow is using names in this novel. So I will read more books by her. I have heard that her books are very different to each other, so I definitely want to try more. But this first one, I would say if you have like thought about reading it, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I don't think that you will gain a lot from it. Then on place number 3, we have Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This is the last book I finished. I just talked about it in a wrap up and I just uploaded the reading vlog, so I'm trying to keep it short here. But this one was good. I definitely enjoyed it. It is still not a book I would recommend to everyone because I feel like you have to have like a very specific reading taste to enjoy it. While reading it, it also reminded me a little bit of Babel in a way that it is also looking at academia in a very critical way, but also with some like magic and fantasy elements. So I think if you liked Babel, you might enjoy Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell as well. In this one, we have 1800s England, and all the magicians are just theoretical magicians. They don't practice magic anymore. And Mr. Norrell has set the goal to bring magic back to England. So he's actually practicing it. And we're basically following him on his way to achieve that. And then a little bit later on, Jonathan Strange comes into the scene and he is like the second practicing magician in England. We also have the backdrop of the Napoleon Wars, so that plays into the plot as well. But the interesting thing about this book is that it just really, you know, if you don't have highs and lows with this book, it's just like a straight line. It is always kind of interesting, but it never goes into any depth with the characters, for example, which is something that I really like reading about. When something terrible happens to these characters, you don't really see the fallout. You don't see them struggle with it or anything like that. It just keeps on going. It just keeps on going. But I think the explorations on knowledge and what is dangerous knowledge, how does the society and especially academia deal with dangerous knowledge? Like, is it okay to keep it hidden away from people, or do all people have the right to our knowledge? It's very interesting. It's definitely dealing with interesting themes. And I also really like the way that it just brings in fairies and this like idea of fairy magic that just feels very English to me. The way that also, for example, Tolkien would think about fairies and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed it. I think it's good, but I do not think it is for everyone. On the second place, we have The Changeling by Victor Laval. This is also an interesting book. I don't think I would recommend it to everyone. I would definitely not recommend it to young parents. In this book, we follow a man as he becomes a father for the first time and kind of how that impacts his life. And also then something terrible happens and it's about that and how he's trying to cope. This also deals with, in a weird way, kind of postpartum depression, but in a very weird way, because it's also magical. And I feel like the ending kind of lost me a little bit because it goes into very interesting kind of like fairy tale aspects. So there was a lot of interesting stuff in this book and I really like the atmosphere. I think you just really feel for the main character. You can really see his grief and his pain and the way that he is trying to deal. But as I said, just the ending bit, it gets quite out there. So I think for like more like horror type novels, the ending is always a struggle. So it's okay for me. But yeah, I don't think everyone will love this book, but I think definitely more people will probably love this one than the other ones I have mentioned so far. And then my number one, I should probably have some like drum roll right now, is Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. This was actually the first book I have read from this list, and it was definitely the one that just kind of has it all. I think it has beautiful writing, it has amazing characters, and especially character dynamics. This book deals with quite a horrible topic that is also in some parts autobiographical for James Baldwin, which I did not know going into this book that this is what it kind of deals with. This book looks at a teenage boy, and it is like a very, very narrow view, because I think we just have like, I think it is one day of his life, I think, and then we do get flashbacks to people who are important adults in his life. So we see from his mom's point of view and his aunt's point of view and stuff like that. And this explores kind of like violence in the family, but also the role of religion. And if you like grow up and you start feeling like you're different, you might be gay or bisexual or something like that. So it also explores like these first feelings of queerness. And it's an amazing book. And honestly, after this one, I'm like very hyped to read more James Baldwin, and I will definitely go and check more of his books out. Obviously, that's not very surprising. Like, it's kind of like a classic for a reason. I don't think that, in my opinion, stands out at all with that. But yeah, if you also still haven't checked out James Baldwin, I would highly recommend. It was such a great book, and I think that his books are quite hard-hitting, but also I just really I want to read more. I want to check them out. And that's it. That's my little ranking. So the overall gist would be that apart from Ursula K. Le Guin, I want to read more books from all of these authors. I think that James Baldwin is highest on my list, but I also want to read more Victor Laval. I want to definitely give Alex E. Harrow another try, just because I've heard that the other books are so different. And then also I really want to read Piranesi. Maybe I can still squeeze it in before the year's over. We'll see about that. But yeah, that's my little ranking. I would love to hear your thoughts on these authors, if you have read them as well, or maybe you still need to do so. And that's it from me. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!